Hey folks, this week we're talking again about Rust in the kernel, but this time Linus has put his foot down. Then we've got news about Asahi, news about one of those other OS manufacturers wrestling with an encryption law, Gen 2, Meta taken to court for torrenting, all kinds of crazy stuff. You don't want to miss it, so stay tuned.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is the Untitled Linux Show, episode 191, recorded Saturday, February the 22nd. Linux like sausage. Hey folks, it is Saturday, and you know what that means. It's time for Linux, geeking out about open source, free software, Linux desktop, and some other things. We're going to talk about some of those other OSs today and some other things going on sort of around the world. We're going to branch out just a little bit beyond Linux, but some important stuff and some fascinating stuff. It is not just me, of course. We've got Mr. Rob Campbell and Mr. Jeff Massie. Welcome to both of you.
Yo, yo.
And we're gonna let Rob go first. He's got a story about something we've been talking about for a long time. There's more drama. What's the latest on the kernel trying to get rusty?
So the saga continues with more news about Rust in the Linux kernel. And I think this is going to be the last week I do it, unless there's something just huge. I'm getting tired of it. But as I said last week, I would feel better about Rust in Linux policy that we discussed if it came from the top, from the Linux guys themselves. And, they must be listening. Maybe they're listeners of the show. Hey, Linus and Greg. But they must be listening because this week it comes from the top, as both Linus Torvald and Greg KH, Greg Cora Hartman, both had things to say. So I'm going to back it up with a little bit with Christopher Hellwig. So he's a kernel maintainer involved with the DMA layer in the kernel, and he's been one of the people who's been critical of Rust in the Linux kernel. He's worried about the kernel becoming unmaintainable due to Rust bindings just creeping up all over the place, and then having to be continually updating to keep up with this Rust change and that to be changed, and just endless keeping up with it. So that's his concern, and we've discussed our thoughts on the validity of that. But regardless of his objections, Hellwig says that Linus told him privately that he would override maintainers' vetoes on Rust code within the kernel. So a couple days later, Linus made his views public, and he clarified upon Hellwig's statement what he actually said, and saying, maintainers can either choose to take an active role with Rust bindings for areas of the kernel they oversee and become involved, or have a hands-off approach where it's more complementary to their code. But kernel maintainers can't object to new Rust code as, effectively as a user of their C code, meaning if it's not something they're actually maintaining and involved in, they can't object to Rust code going into some other part of the kernel. So before this point, Linus was quiet on the matter, hoping to see something constructive come out of the discussions that were going on. But he got involved when he says things appeared to be moving backwards. So Linus's main objection, to a recent veto Hellwig attempted, was the fact that the pull request that Hellwig objected to did not touch any part of his DMA code. So in effect here, Hellwig was merely objecting as a user of that code rather than a maintainer of that actual part of the code. And that seems to be what he really had a problem with. You got nothing to do with it, just keep out, essentially. So and that's what I'm going to say about that piece of it. But Linus's number 2 in charge, Greg KH, also had something to say about the whole Rust in the kernel debate. So in general, Greg shares his reasoning. He believes gradually moving to the Linux kernel to Rust is a good thing. Greg says, quote, "The majority of bugs, quantity, not quality or severity, we have are due to the stupid little corner cases in C that are totally gone in Rust. Things like simple overwrites of memory. Not that Rust can catch all of these by far. Error paths, cleanups, forgetting to check error values, and use after free mistakes. End of quote. But he points out that there are more than 30 million lines of C code in the Linux kernel that aren't going anywhere any year soon. But that isn't a reason to stop new code and new drivers from being written in Rust. He talks about other benefits, to the API that'll improve that, and providing more time to work on real bugs while you're not trying to find and fix these edge cases, these little C bugs. But he also admits Rust isn't a silver bullet to solve all of their problems. But to be clear, Greg isn't a Rust developer, and he had this to say about that. Quote, "Yes, the Rust bindings look like magic to me in places. Someone with very little Rust experience, saying he has very little Rust experience, but I'm willing to learn and work with the developers who have stepped up to help out here. To not want to learn and change based on new evidence, parentheses, see my point about reading kernel bugs we have." So into that quote there, so with this new update here, the leaders of the Linux kernel have spoken, and they're in favor of Rust. And I really only had time to touch on the key highlights of what these two wrote this week. But if you check out the show notes, you can find links to these, which you'll find links to the full Linux kernel mailing list, letters, emails, I guess, that they wrote, or however we phrase that, what they wrote on it. It's a good page or so letter that, I don't have time to break down every detail. I got the highlights for you. But they're interesting letters to read and to hear what their take is on it. And it's good to see that they have a view on it. Personally, I guess I was almost kind of leaning to, it seems like a pain to maintain, and I'm maybe concerned that it will cause problems in the future. But then again, I'm not a Rust developer. I barely know much C. I've done some C. So maybe I'm not the one to ask. I don't know what it really takes to put those two together like this. But the Linux gods have spoken.
Yes, they have. And honestly, I understand, right, why maintainers are so concerned about Rust in the kernel, particularly when they don't speak Rust, and when there's sometimes a pain. But I think Torvalds has hit the nail on the head here, right? Like, this is sort of a bigger open source and free software argument to make, that you don't get to control what people do with your code. And the people that don't like Rust don't get to keep users of their APIs out of other directories in the kernel. And that just seems pretty straightforward. So I'm not sure why we needed Torvalds to come in and say this, but I know. But like, from a certain point of view, we should not have needed him to come in and make this statement. It should have been self-evident.
The big thing for me was that I didn't realize that it didn't touch any of the C code. I thought that it was kind of intermingled a lot more, and that they would have to maintain it. There was a lot more intermixing versus, okay, I have this section of code. I'm complaining about your pull, but it doesn't affect me. I'm not,
Yeah.
So you're thinking like a single file of C programming with some C here and some Rust here and some C here again?
Well, or maybe different object files, and it was have to get knitted together, or the maintainer was going to have to know Rust to be able to do it. And it's like, no, here's the section I maintain.
Here's part of it. Here's part of what's going on. The kernel has internal APIs, and so those are the way that the different parts of the kernel talk to each other. And with someone that is in charge of one of those APIs, they work together. They will make a change to it. And so let's just say that they make a change to the DMA side of it. That will break other code. And so the way the kernel has historically worked is when you send one of these patches in that's going to change API, you also include in there the fixes to all of the places that use that API, or you at least work with the people that do it. And so one of the things that really was bothering these maintainers, particularly in the internal kernel APIs, is if the Rust code is going to use their API, what do they do when they need to make a change to the API? What do they do when they need to change the way something works in the kernel and they've got this code that's written in Rust that depends upon their stuff? How do these C developers that are the maintainers then go out and fix this when they don't know Rust, when Rust is not their preferred language? It's not the language they speak at all, perhaps. And so there's this legitimate question of, in having Rust bindings for my code, is that going to tie my hands to not be able to make changes? And that's a pretty legitimate concern to have. That has been answered, and the answer is no, that will not tie your hands. It's going to be on, the burden is going to be on whoever is maintaining the Rust binding. And that's hopefully that's you that's helping with that, but even if it's not, that's okay. And so that's sort of the answer that they've come to. We're kind of watching the sausage get made. It's not surprising that there is disagreement and contention in exactly how all of this is going to get worked out. Hopefully we don't have anybody else throwing their hands up and leaving the kernel in disgust. That would be ideal, but it might happen.
Well, I mean, like you said, we're seeing how the sausage is made. It's a little messy, but Linux, like sausage, is pretty darn good.
Yes. And it's always been messy inside the Linux kernel mailing list. Let's be real. Let's be honest.
It's a lot calmer than it used to be.
Yes. I would say that every large software project mailing list is going to have moments of messy sausage making, we'll say. Right? This is pretty typical. When you have a big decision to make, you're trying to change something. This is pretty typical.
Well, and when you're dealing with people putting a lot of code into the kernel, you're dealing with a pretty high level programmer. So, I mean, this is not just a script kiddie or something. You're going to have egos. You're going to have people that are maybe not as socially adept as others. It sometimes comes with the territory, and there's a little grinding of gears sometimes.
Yep. And it's like any other communication over text is hard, right? So email just has sort of this built into it problem. You don't have face-to-face conversation with email. You don't get body cues. You don't get even the tone of the way someone is saying something. So
emojis are important.
In some cases, they literally can be, yes. And I don't think they use much emoji in the Linux kernel mailing list. Maybe that's what they need to do. Maybe that's the solution to all of this problem, is to use more emojis. But anyway, so I'm just saying, and these guys know that. All the people that work in the Linux kernel, they realize that. And so it's kind of like they've adapted to the point to where, they may get fired up over something, but generally, if they're going to last in the kernel for very long, they'll calm down and can explain themselves over text, and they'll figure out a way to move forwards, right? It's as normal. All right. Yes.
No, I was just saying definitely. I was just agreeing with you.
Okay. So let's move on to something else that's actually rather related, and that is Asahi, which is one of these Rust projects that has been trying to push code up into the Rust kernel. And we talked last week about the leader. I always think of Martin as his name. I always think of Marcan because that's his screen name. It's his handle. But Martin he's moving on. He's left both the Linux kernel and the Asahi project. And there is a new blog post from Asahi that is laying forward what they are going to do next. And it sort of involves a change in governance in a way. So Asahi previously had a single sort of benevolent dictator, you could say. And they are moving to more of a panel of experts kind of a model. And the current list of leads is Alyssa Rosenwig, Chaos Princess, David Kalvaka, Neil Gampa, James Caligaros, Jan Grunna, and Sven Peter, which you've got 3 kernel devs, a graphics dev, 2 Fedora devs, and an audio dev in that list. And you may think that's weird to see Fedora devs, but remember that Asahi is now based on Fedora. Fedora is their sort of flagship. So it's not all that unexpected to see it get a little bit closer to Fedora with this. But anyway, I found it very interesting to see that they are the people that are still in the project want to continue on. They're pushing forwards. Even in this blog post, they've got a list of things that they're still working on and should have working in the next release. The DisplayPort alt modes that you can run a monitor just over USB-C. They are working on the internal microphone support, some of the things like that. Working on the Vulkan driver still. So, some good things from Asahi. They're having to obviously make modifications to the way the project works, but it appears as though there are enough people still involved in it that still care about it that it's going to continue on. And so, those of you out there with Mac machines based on the M processor, take heart. Things will continue to happen, and it looks like code will continue to go upstream into the kernel as well. So that is that. Neither of you guys have Mac machines, so you don't care.
No experience.
Yeah. I really wish that there were a way, and obviously there's not because the iPad and the iPhone are so locked down with their bootloader. I would love to be able to run Asahi on something like an iPad because their new iPads are based on the M processors. But I've asked a couple of people involved in the Asahi project about that, and they've each told me that the bootloaders are locked down. It's just not possible.
Yeah, I didn't realize that the Asahi was now based on Fedora. I thought they still had their Arch, and then the Fedora, there was now a Fedora spin.
I think, but I'm pretty sure Fedora is the flagship now. Yeah,
I'm trying to find that, and that's what I believe I am seeing on the on their About Us page in the FAQ section. So I learned that new today. That is something new I learned about Asahi.
You relearned it. I know we covered it back in the day.
We covered that Fedora Asahi was going to be a flagship. I just didn't know it was going to replace. I don't think we ever clearly said that it was actually replacing theirs.
Yeah. And I mean, let's be honest, Fedora is a better choice than Arch. For people coming from the macOS side, particularly, Fedora is a better choice than Arch.
Void Linux also has an Asahi mix, or whatever they call theirs.
They call theirs, yes. I guess if you really want to go use Void, and so that's the other thing, right? Like, there's nothing stopping Ubuntu and Leap and Tumbleweed and all of these guys from having an Asahi spin, right? Especially now that things are landing upstream in the kernel. In some cases, it's just going to work, and it's going to be pretty easy to get it going. And some of those have images, and there are ways to get it running. We're just talking about like the sort of flagship, the preferred Asahi experience, and that happens to be on Fedora right now. It may change to something else in the future. Who knows? All right, Jeff, what's up with KDE?
Well, Nate Graham in his weekly blog provides numerous updates on what's happening with the Plasma desktop. And we know that version 6.3 is out, and depending on your distribution, version 6.3.1 is also available. Both versions are receiving a lot of attention and fixes, and the team is currently working on version 6.3.2, and fixes are already underway regarding what will be included in Plasma 6.4. So if we take a look at the fixes in version 6.3.1, one significant issue was that involved KWin built with LTO on GCC 15, which could result in a black screen on login when using an ICC profile. The code was restructured to avoid this issue. Now, I should say ICC stands for International Color Consortium, which is a profile that allows users to define their colors, adjusting them if necessary for their display device, thus enabling color accuracy tuning. Another fix addresses a plasma crash that occurred when attempting to access the properties dialog for a file in the recently or frequently used file list in the Kickoff application launcher. Additionally, a regression that caused the volume change on screen display to fail when adjusting the volume with the integrated volume buttons of a Bluetooth headset was resolved. There's other fixes as well, but in the interest of time, let's move to version 6.3.2. So in version 6.3.2, a regression that caused desktop icons to become inappropriately deselected if you dragged a selection box around several icons and released the mouse button over one of them was then fixed. In a 2-for-1 fix, they addressed a bug where the desktop and panels would go missing when applying new global theme and using the option to replace the existing layout. This also fixed an issue that caused deleted widgets to not be removed from the desktop-applet source.config file. So always love those 2-for-1 fixes. Moving on to Plasma 6.4.0, an issue was fixed when switching users using KRunner would cause the desktop to start working erratically and eventually crash. Additionally, there was a change to KWin's render loop initialization code, which now uses a more precise timer to reduce frame drops. Now, overall, when reviewing the list of bugs, there's one very high priority Plasma bug that remains the same as last week. And it is worth noting that this is actually an X11 bug, not a Wayland bug. There are currently 30 15-minute Plasma bugs, up from 27 last week. But overall, 129 bugs were fixed over the last week. So overall, although the overall bug tracker might not show significant change, nearly 130 bugs being fixed demonstrates the substantial work being done to fine-tune the Plasma code. For full details and a comprehensive list of all the bugs that were fixed, please refer to the link in the show notes. And there was a lot I skipped over. I kind of just cherry-picked some highlights. You know, I must say I'm genuinely excited for the future of KDE. And, you know, even bigger with the Cosmic Desktop, you know, on the horizon, you know, stable release. I mean, I know there's some alphas out, but, you know, it's coming on. I believe the interface for Linux is set up to be a fantastic future. You know, happy times ahead.
We've had some neat stuff, honestly, on the Linux desktop for a long time now, with the advances in eye candy, and it's just some things that you've been able to do on Linux for forever with like multiple workspaces. There have been neat things that have landed on Linux that have not come to other desktop, either have not at all come to other desktops, or very slowly, you know, the other big two have kind of stolen our ideas and rolled them out.
Yeah, a lot of the big things come to the other desktops one way or another. Either they adopt them 10 years later, or some third party makes something that kind of replicates it. Because I don't know, Linux comes up with a lot of great things on the, well, in general.
Well, I mean, it's because the code's open source, right? It's so easy. If, you know, somebody can just go, hey, wouldn't it be cool? And the next thing you know, they're hands deep into the code, working on it, make it work, make it happen. Hey, it was cool. Send a patch in, and then everybody can enjoy it. I mean, you have an idea. You have your Windows machine. You go, hey, wouldn't it be cool if it did this? How are you going to make it do that? I don't know. I can't get to the source to do anything with it.
Well, if you're one of those people, go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, and even if you're a developer for, say, Windows, I think this would be cool to do. You now have 20 levels of management to put it through, and project design, reviews, and then probably case studies. And how's this going to affect everything? You know, it's a glacial movement because, you know, this might break something too. And
yep. Yeah, so Linux is more experimental. Linux desktop, but some desktops in particular are more experimental. They're more open to experimentation, and so they get to move faster and do cool things.
If you are one of those people who likes to dig into the code, as Jonathan said it, there is a company we're going to talk about soon that may have a job for you.
Why don't you go ahead? Why don't you take it and tell us about it?
I will. I just did since Ken's not here, I had to do the segue for him. So gaming on Linux has gotten quite good in the past few years. This week, I've even seen a few posts. They were on Reddit, people talking about how the infamous YouTuber PewDiePie is now using Linux, and apparently he's rather impressed with its gaming capabilities. So, are you one of those developers who likes to dig into the code? Are you looking to make gaming on Linux even better for PewDiePie and the rest of us? Well, Codeweavers is looking to hire multiple wine developers, as well as their crossover products, being Valve's Proton, downstream for Steam Play, and related wine-based tech. And someone who really needs to be better is, Linus from Linus Tech Tips, because we saw how that went in the past. But anyway, back to the story. So, who is Codeweavers? We've mentioned them, but I'm sure a lot of people forget who they are, or maybe just saying the name brought it up. But for users of the Valve Steam Deck or desktop Steam gaming on Linux, you're likely familiar with their work, as they are contracted by Valve for helping with Proton to power Steam Play for running Windows games on Linux. And that's, a huge part of what's made gaming so accessible on Linux these days. And then along with, other commercial agreements that they have with organizations for running Windows software on Linux and Mac OS too, I guess. Who cares? So if you're experienced with working on open source projects, and plus you have a strong C language skill, maybe you're one of those kernel developers who doesn't want Rust, but you're a C developer, you can come over here. Excellent debugging abilities, and a desired Windows. Well, they desire Windows 32 programming experience. So. I guess a little bit of Windows is going to help you there too for Linux, but this might be a job for you. The job posting is up on their site, go apply. But for the rest of us, not looking for a job, or, we're not C developers, this is still good news, especially for gamers. This is a sign that Codeweavers, and probably Valve, they probably have some role in this. Maybe they're contracting more, maybe they are asking for more, but either way, Codeweavers specifically, at least, is investing and putting more into this, even more work into their code. And, we're likely to see the results in the future with games, way more games working, other applications. One complaint I hear is, Office doesn't work on Windows or Adobe. Who knows? I'm just throwing things out there. Maybe they'll get those things working in the future. I don't know. Maybe everything will work in the future with your help.
There you go.
I should say Codeweavers is one of the companies I actually spend money with, and because it's basically supporting wine development, which supports Proton and all that. I don't really have a huge use for it, but I'm just kind of supporting them through having a license. And they do package things, so they have automatic installers and whatnot. So if you say, I want to run this specific program, a lot of times they will have kind of predefined scripts that will kind of automatically load things and set up some of the wine tricks that you need and things like that to make it easier to run some of that software.
Yeah, they have the crossover version of wine, right? Yeah. So and crossover is basically, it's a paid version of wine, and I haven't used it in years. Maybe I should, maybe not. But my understanding is it will, like regular wine, you can maybe run some really old versions of Office. From what I've read, you can run some pretty new versions of Office with the crossover plugin.
And I think part of the package there is being able to have somebody to call to get support, right? That's going to be part of what they offer. And so for somebody like a business, that probably makes a whole lot of sense. For individual tinkerers like us, maybe less so. We're sort of allergic to calling for help. But
last I looked, that crossover plugin wasn't too expensive, but honestly, it's been a while.
Yep.
Yeah,
I have no
it was. I want to say it was like 30 something, 35 a year or something like that.
Mhm.
Because it was
That's
a
not
little
bad.
more, but then if you keep renewing, then it's cheaper. And I just had the lowest level of license, and then I just thought, well, I'm just support a company that's supporting Linux. So
Yeah. And Valve now is supporting them, and so you can support crossover by, I'm sure, buying games from Valve and playing them on Linux, right?
So if
Right?
you want to work for a company that's supported by Valve and Jeff, crossover.
Indeed. Oh, that'd be fun. It would be fun if one of our listeners got in there and was able to tell us about it.
If you get a job there, let us know.
Let us know.
Yep.
Even if it's privately, we would like to hear about it. All right, let's see. Up next, oh yeah, that other OS. I warned everybody we were going to talk about this. The other OS. So I got a couple of interesting, fun stories that we're going to talk about. And when I say fun, I mean that sarcastically in this case. So the United Kingdom, UK, has passed a law. In fact, it was I think it was an order, not a law. Telling Apple that the UK government wanted access to the end-to-end encrypted iCloud backups. So we talk about getting access to a device, your cell phone. Most cell phones these days are quite well encrypted, and the various manufacturers have been very resistant to putting any backdoors in that encryption for obvious reasons, right? As soon as you try to put a backdoor in encryption, well, it will be abused either by governments or by criminals who figure out a way to abuse it. Like there is no way to actually do backdoor encryption without completely breaking the encryption. That's just the reality of the situation. That's like the reality of the math. It's kind of like physics. There's no arguing with it. So the UK has come out privately about a month ago and said, we want to be able to get into iPhones. Well, you can't get into iPhones directly. There's this kind of workaround, this sort of loophole that's been around for a long time. That is, you can't get into the iPhone itself, but the iPhone will automatically back up all of its data to iCloud. And historically, that has not been end-to-end encrypted inside of iCloud. It's been encrypted, but Apple has the encryption key. And so there was always sort of this backdoor where they could say, we can't get access to this person's telephone, but we want access to this person's iCloud backup. And, it was because Apple had the ability to do that, they were required by law to do so. So Apple rolled out a solution for that, and they called it the Advanced Data Protection, ADP. And that is end-to-end encryption for iCloud backups. It uses the same password that your phone uses, and then when it uploads it encrypts it with that first. And so then when a government would come to Apple and say, "Hey, give us this person's iCloud backup," they could either say we don't have it at all, or fine, here are the encrypted bits. This is probably what actually happens. Here are the encrypted bits and everything we know about it. Good luck figuring out their password. Right? That's likely what actually happens. The UK has passed this order that says that is no longer acceptable. Apple, you are now required to put a backdoor of some sort into ADP, the Advanced Data Protection feature of iCloud. And this has been sort of in the news. If you pay attention to the privacy security news, it's been in the news for about a week now. And various people had various ideas about what should happen. Some said that, Apple will just do what they're told to do. Apple has actually been reasonably good at trying to protect their consumers' privacy. Like, there are things that I do not like about Apple, but they've actually been really good about this. They have consistently refused to put any backdoors in their products, and they let people know about the things that happen. And so they were kind of at an impasse here, and at least one cryptographer that I've read, I forget his name now, he suggested that what really should happen is the United States should pass a law pass a law that says it is illegal for U.S. companies to add encryption backdoors. or at least add encryption backdoors at the behest of foreign companies. And I think that's an interesting idea. I don't know that it exactly gets them out of the jam, but it does give them some backstopping to refuse to do it. Regardless, that law has not happened. And so Apple has made the choice to just not provide ADP, this advanced privacy end-to-end encryption in the UK. And so rather than add a backdoor in a way that, could expose everyone, they've just made the decision that, okay, fine, we're not going to do the end-to-end encryption. We're not going to offer that to our customers in the UK, which is really unfortunate that they can't do that. I like encryption. I think it is a thing that we should all be doing if we can, for various reasons. But being put between a rock and a hard place here, I think Apple probably did the right thing. About the only other option that they would have had would be to pull out of the UK entirely, which would then have essentially the same effect. So it's a difficult topic for them. It's a difficult topic to try to figure out exactly what the right answer is politically and across the world. But I wanted to let everybody know that this is what's going on. I'm going to link off to the Ars Technica article, which is pretty good. I will try to find a link to the other coverage that I came across and read as well. But if you're in the UK and you have an Apple phone, you just lost the ability to have end-to-end encrypted iCloud backups. And for that, I'm sorry. It wasn't our fault this time.
Yeah,
Write your parliament, people.
I guess. Does that even work in the UK?
I don't know.
We usually don't stick our noses into other countries' politics. But
does that even work here? Unless you have enough money. Anyway,
apparently, if enough people do it all at the same time, you can get your Congress critters' attention. But having lots of money seems to help. Anyway, thoughts, guys?
Sorry, Congress listeners.
I think a lot of bad things happen under the premise of good intentions.
Yep.
Oh, and
sure.
Kira says that it was an order based on a law that was passed a few years ago.
There you go. Yeah, I knew there was a law in there, but it wasn't a new law that was passed. And I think it was a secret order for the first month or two. And then somebody's like, we've got to let the world know about this. Then it got confirmed. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they probably did about the best thing I could think of, other than just pulling out altogether. I mean, that might be a wake-up call too, but yeah.
But that wouldn't help consumers anymore. You still wouldn't have access to it, right?
Right, but I mean, maybe they'd back down. Maybe they wouldn't. I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see.
If all they could get is cheap little knockoffs, if Google and Apple both said, okay, we'll back out, all you get is I'm not going to name any names because I'm talking about cheap knockoffs. We don't know their names.
Applu phones, Apple phones. Yeah, that's the sort of thing you get. It's unfortunate. Yeah, I don't want to get any more into the politics. I would like to see the United States look at this and see about trying to make it harder for other countries, right? So this is the sort of thing that everybody should be able to look at and agree on. We do not want other countries to dictate to U.S. companies that they are required to backdoor the encryption of U.S. made products. How is it that not everyone that looks at this immediately comes to that conclusion? I don't understand. Left, right. This seems to be an issue that if you understand what's going on, regardless of which side of the aisle you're on, it really seems to me that there should be a big crossover between the kind of the left side is very much privacy and independence for individuals, have your data privacy online. And the right has kind of this U.S. nationalism and let's protect our companies in the United States. This seems like it's a win for both of those mindsets.
And I agree, but also even if the U.S. made a law, I don't think, Apple doing business in the UK, I don't think it would only thing it would do, I think, would mean that Apple can't open the back door, which would mean that they either have to pull out, they have to do what they did already, or the UK has to back down. And those are pretty much kind of the three options anyway.
Can you just imagine, though? Tariffs for everything from the UK.
Okay, there's that.
I think you said the first thing, though, is if they understood. The problem is so many people doing this kind of stuff, they have no clue how this even works and have no idea of what the unintended consequences are going to be.
That's absolutely the thing. You have people that are writing these laws, and they just in a lot of cases they honestly just want to be able to catch criminals, right? Like I fully believe that there is some good intentions behind stuff like this. But you just don't understand that this is not like a safe. You can't just say that you have to make 2 keyholes in the safe. Like, encryption doesn't really work that way.
I got a few knockoff phones for you. The EYE phone, the Samsung, or the new Kia.
The new Kia. Yeah. That sounds like something you'd find in Fallout.
Thanks, Harold.
Nice.
Those are good.
It comes on your wrist and it's kind of got that amber color to it with the black background, Hip boy.
Yep. All right, let's move on and not get ourselves into any more political deep waters, and let's talk about hung GPUs. Jeff, I saw this. I didn't dive deep into it. What's the deal with the hung GPUs?
Well, we're still pretty early in the 6.14 kernel release, and as the time of this recording, we're only on release candidate number 3. But if we look ahead to the 6.15 kernel, something very helpful, I believe anyway, is coming our way. The feature I'm talking about is a standardized way of informing user space of a hung GPU. Stuck, glitching, whatever. It's so if anybody's not sure what a hung GPU is, it's a malfunctioning GPU. I should preface this early on. This is initially set up for AMD and Intel GPUs only. So NVIDIA is not supported at this time, but this is a standardized interface. So the article does comment that other non-Intel AMD Linux GPU drivers and non-Intel drivers, basically they're saying Team Green will likely adopt this event interface in the future as well, because it's open and sounds like it's not going to be hard to implement. It started with Intel graphics driver engineers for their Xe and their i-915 direct rendering manager, and they added a new event to the kernel. Now, this event reports unresponsive hardware to user space. Now, the AMD GPU drivers are also able to make use of this device event. When the hardware becomes unstable or hung, malfunctioning, it then notifies user space. Okay, now what? Well, this would allow for a user then to intervene and take actions to possibly be able to recover from this bad hardware state. It could even trigger recovery scripts to automate recovery of the problem hardware. Now, several things can be done to get the hardware working again, such as unbinding and rebinding the kernel driver, unbinding and rebinding the actual hardware driver. It's talking to the hardware, unbind that. And there's things like resetting the bus device after the driver unbind. Now, they also leave room for other actions that aren't defined at this time, but if you take a look at the link in the show notes, there's an example of a recovery script given for a rebind. So it's a way to flag, and then you can try to kind of re-kick your hardware to get things going. Now, in the article in the show notes, there's a link to the actual mailing list patch, and it has been submitted to the DRM next queue. So this means that when the 6.15 merge window opens, probably around the end of March, give or take how many release candidates there are in 6.14, it will then be pulled into 6.15 at that time. That is assuming there's no major roadblocks or issues with the patch, or Linus doesn't take a look at it and go, "What are you doing?" Barring any of that, it should make it in. Now, these are Intel developers, so I mean they're old hat at this, so it's most likely going to make it in.
Yeah.
But take a look at the link in the show notes in the article for all the details on this. But I think for gamers and people like myself who may run beta or even pre-beta software, so you can play games, this might come in handy once in a while.
Yeah, you also find stuff like I've been in this situation before, right? Like I've hung my GPU multiple times, and I am used to finding in my error log something like error Radeon fence wait timed out. And that's just one of the messages that the kernel will throw when the GPU has hung in some way. You run into this like playing a new video game in Wine for the first time when nobody has looked at it yet. And because it's new, it does something unexpected. It triggers some bug in video card firmware or the driver. And, any one of these bugs can then cause. So what we're essentially talking about is the firmware on your video card crashes, right? Just like your OS in your computer can hit a bug and crash, a program can crash, your kernel can crash. There's code running inside your GPU, that code can crash as well. And sometimes that code crashes because it's just buggy. Sometimes it crashes because your driver is telling it to do something that just doesn't make any sense. All kinds of reasons. This is a thing. And you have, in the past, you had, I know this is something that they tried to handle in AMD land. If your video card crashes right now if you have an AMD, your machine will attempt to restart it and get it running again. Now, sometimes that works and sometimes that doesn't. But like if you're in the middle of playing a game and everything goes dark and then it comes back up again, and maybe even you get a few more frames out of it, and then it goes dark again, and then it comes back up again, that's your video card trying to reset because it's crashed. And so this sort of thing has been around. What's really neat about this is that they're going to try to make this one protocol, this one API across all of them. I think it's going to make the desktop designers, like the KDE guys and all that, it's going to make their job much easier. Going to make them much happier.
Oh yeah, because right now, just so everybody knows, there's no way for the kernel to tell userland, and userland is what you and I interact with, that something's gone wrong with the GPU currently in the current kernels. So, and this will allow the userland to kind of take a little bit of control on, hey, maybe here's some things we can do to try to reset that. And you also will run into this, we've got the 5000 series out from NVIDIA, a pretty new driver there. We're going to have the 9000 series out from AMD here in a couple of weeks. They're probably going to have some driver issues in there too, because it's all brand new hardware. You're going to run into things that you don't normally see just because they can test a lot of things, but they're not going to run it through the gambit like 20,000 people are.
Yep. We Linux users do some crazy off the wall things with our hardware sometimes. It's true.
If I, caught your story correctly and it wasn't, just over my head like all your other hardware stories, the one key thing I caught here that I think you said in a roundabout way is that on Linux, NVIDIA's fallen behind again. I think you said, right? They don't have this cool new feature.
That is true.
I want to make sure I heard that right.
Yeah, this is cool though. You could see, doing things like detect what is actually using the GPU and automatically killing that process, and then trying a GPU reset, right? So like if it's a particular game, rather than crashing your entire system, you could just kill the game.
Don't crash my game.
I mean, if the whole system crashes, your game is also going to crash.
Try something else first.
Sure. We'll try something else first.
I might be in the middle of something and an animal will kill me.
You're not that good of a player anyway, Rob. It'll be okay.
All right. So it's back up to Rob, and he's going to talk about Gen 2. Have you run Gen 2? Have you daily driven Gen 2 yet, Rob?
No.
Well, you need to add it to your list then.
Well, for followers of the show who pay attention and remember these things, if you listen, you would know that I have tried to set up Gentoo in the past. And I got to the compile point, and well, I wouldn't say I gave up, but I just decided I didn't want to go through it at that time.
You just need a faster computer.
Well, I didn't even start. I didn't even hit the command to start it. I got there and I don't know. So I still have the virtual machine waiting for me to come back and finish. Well, it looks like if I want to daily drive it, there may be another way. Gentoo may have released a much easier way. I mean, I guess they have released a much easier way for people like me to try out Gentoo in a virtual machine. And what they have released is a pre-made QCOW2 disk image designed to be easily deployed to a VM or a cloud environment. Right now, images are offered for the x86-64 and the AArch64 platforms. And this allows you to quickly boot into Gentoo with a QEMU native QCOW2 format. So it's already basically installed for you on a nice little file of the hard drive or it's storage, whatever. And they say it's going to be updated on a weekly basis. So, you're going to get updates faster than your Ubuntu with a fully functional Gentoo installation. And while they also have future plans to support the EFI-based RISC-V 64-bit and long arch 64-bit bootable images, they're not there yet. They're expected to come. And sure, this kind of defeats much of the purpose of running Gentoo, kind of building it up from scratch and compiling it, which I wouldn't know about because I didn't get that far. I didn't do that yet. But compiling your own system, building it up, making it yours from scratch how you want it. But it may be a great way for people like me to test it out before going all in. I could put that on a VM and give it a good test run and find out if I really want to spend the next hours, day, whatever, building it up myself. And, their hope is to become more cloud friendly and increase their presence, in data centers and cloud and, anybody using a VM. So, because you don't really hear about Gentoo in these circumstances months. It's more people running on their desktops and the hobbyists kind of, because it takes some work. It's like a cross between Arch and Linux from scratch. I mean, it's a little easier than Linux from scratch, except for Linux from scratch has great directions, though you're really kind of doing all the same thing, except once you have it installed, they do have a package manager. That's my understanding. I've never ran it. But in a way, it's also like Arch. You build it up like Arch, but then instead of installing everything with the package manager, you compile it all. So my understanding, hopefully I didn't say that wrong, because like I said, I haven't ran it, but I have an easy way to do it soon. And, I look forward to trying out the QCOW2 image from Gentoo.
Yeah, that'll be fun. It is a valid observation that Gentoo is very difficult to use for real deployments. If you have to compile everything from scratch, it's just makes it a kind of a no-go. So
I might have to try it because my pre-alpha 25.04 Kubuntu nightly build, it dorked itself along the way. So I have to and again, nightly build pre-alpha.
It's not unexpected, right? It's not that much of a surprise.
So I need to reload to get in a usable state, and it's like, maybe I'll try Gentoo.
Yeah.
Are you talking bare metal here?
Yeah.
Yeah. So this is a QCOW image, so it's specifically for virtualization.
Yeah.
Right. I don't know what it would take to try to boot a QCOW on bare metal. I'm sure there's a way to do it, but
you could. No, I'm talking just running regular Gentoo and just try it.
You're gonna go through it all. All right, it's a race.
Let us know. Let's see how that goes.
I'm not racing. I'm.
Yeah. I mean, come on, it's taken me like 6 months already. So, or more, I don't
But
know.
you've done Arch, right, Rob?
Yeah.
Yeah. See, then I can just go, oh, you didn't compile your OS.
Yeah.
So
Gen 2 is a step above.
Yeah. So then you got those bragging rights on the Arch guys.
I've done Linux from scratch too, but honestly, Linux from scratch has excellent directions.
It really does.
Step by step. And that was one thing that made me stop with Gen 2 is they're good, I think, not as good, I don't think. And I got to a point I'm like, I kind of wasn't quite sure exactly what I was supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I can try out what is the basic user experience, starting from just bare metal, empty drive, and go, okay, what do I do? Because realistically, we know compiling, optimize, and all that, it doesn't gain that much.
For most things, yeah, it really doesn't.
Yeah. Unless you're really running a database or something where it's, compiling, doing heavy crunching where every second matters, you'll never notice anything. But, I can check it off the list.
There's a question. Does Linux from scratch have Mesa 25.0? And the thing is, Linux from scratch, you're compiling it. So you get anything you want. You download it from them, from
wherever the projects are at. Yeah, generally.
You download the Mesa source or any other source. As long as you can get the source code, you compile it. And if you can do that, you got it. There's no package or repo, no package manager or repo to install things. So, but I think maybe I'll do I'll take the QCOW2 image and maybe I'll do like a DD over to a drive, and that might work.
The latest beyond Linux from scratch seems to be Mesa 24.3.4. So I don't know what it would take to try to do 25 instead. Things like Mesa tend to be a little more difficult to just jump ahead in versions. It might work. It might not. You just have to see.
There's a lot of dependencies that come along with, you say, okay, I want Mesa 25.0. Oh, but then here's 16 other things that have to be upgraded and aligned.
And that's essentially the whole point of Linux from scratch, was that there was always these sort of interleaved dependencies. Like you have to have the kernel, XYZ, you've got to have one of these 3 GCC compilers, and you have to have one of these 3 libc versions, and trying to figure out which ones of those went together was, I think, for the longest time, and probably still to some extent, a huge pain to try to figure out. And so that's what Linux from scratch was. It was a manual for, here are known compatible versions of everything, and then also here are it comes with instructions to actually bootstrap into an environment to be able to build the kernel and enough things to get a running system.
Yeah, so the directions are not for 25.0 yet, but
not yet.
If you're adventurous and you want to do it on your own, it's probably, it's got to be possible. Obviously, somebody built it.
Yeah, it's possible.
It's just, you're going to have to research those dependencies on
you're
your
just
own.
going to hate your life for the next week or month or.
Well, but this is actually, okay, Rob wants to make his coffee Linux, and he'll tell you where to send the coffee at the end of the show. But anyway, he wants to make his distribution. This is Linux from scratch is how you do it. This is where you say, oh, I want to have this kind of kernel and this version of Mesa, and I'm going to make it whatever. This is what somebody who builds their own Linux distribution basically goes through.
Well, do they? I don't think.
Well, if you're truly from scratch, not a
most
derivative.
Are basing it off of something else, but a few.
Yeah. But if you want it unique, there you go.
Yep. I would recommend a build system and a package manager to go with it, not just LFS. But you do you, Rob. Coffee Linux can be whatever you want it to be. All right. We've got one. Oh, this one. Yes. We've got one more story from me, and then we've got one more story from Jeff. This one is fun. This one is so much fun. So, Meta, the company previously known as Facebook, is sort of in legal trouble because it torrented a whole bunch of books.
That is fun.
This is so much fun. This whole story is so much fun. Meta torrented a huge data set of pirated books for AI training, and they got caught. And a group of authors are taking them to court, and there are multiple claims that are happening in this court case, and there are a couple of them that are very, very, very interesting. All right, so one of the first claims is that these authors are claiming that it is unlawful for Meta, Facebook, to copy and distribute these written works via AI outputs. And so this is getting into a question that I find very, very interesting. Is training an AI on copyrighted works enough of a transformative work that it breaks the chain of copyright from the original works? It's a huge legal question that we all have in our current AI world. And this is one of the court cases that is going to decide it. We've got a group of authors on one side, and we've got Facebook, Meta on the other. So that in and of itself is super interesting because we need case law on this. We need the world to sort of come to conclusion of, how much training, or at what point is training an AI the same thing as stealing written works? And it's not going to be a black and white answer. There's going to be some point where, if you can get the AI to spit back out the word for word original works, then yes, you have broken copyright law. But if you can't do that, then it's more of an open question, right? And I've seen some people say, well, trying to block an AI from doing it essentially makes it illegal to read a book, because arguably there's not a whole lot of difference between what an AI does when it reads a work and sort of makes that work part of itself, and what we humans do when we read a book and we sort of make that book a part of our own psyche. So that's an interesting thought experiment as well. What makes this one particularly fascinating to us as Linux users is that Meta torrented these pirated books. And so these book authors and publishers are also going after them for the unlawful distribution of copyrighted works through illegal torrenting, which has long been considered established case law. I'm reading from the Ars Technica article. And Meta's response to this, their legal defense is, yes, we torrented those things, but we didn't seed the torrents, so it's not actually illegal, which is hilarious to me. So yes, we downloaded it, but we didn't re-upload it, so we didn't actually break copyright. It was whoever packaged up that torrent and uploaded to us, that's who broke copyright. And boy, that's actually really fascinating legally. If that were to become case law, that would change the way piracy cases were handled. For it to become suddenly not illegal to download something via torrent, only illegal to seed it, to re-upload. Boy, that's fascinating. Very, very, very interesting case going on here that I will be following.
It's usually been the seeds that, or the actual uploading of it, that's gotten people in trouble. But
yes,
as I was thinking about it, not always true. I had somebody I knew, one way or another, gave their computer to a relative.
Mm-hmm.
I think they had some disabilities or something too, the relative. And maybe it got caught. Maybe they actually torrented him, seeded him back up. I don't know. But I know that somehow they found him on the computer,
mm-hmm.
and then it got back to them and cost them like $2,000.
Eek.
This was like 15 years ago too. But I guess it could have been. I bet it was also uploading in that case too. So it's usually the uploading that gets you in trouble.
Yes. Well, because if you're uploading, then you are participating in actively distributing. They're not stolen, right? It's not technically theft, but you're actively participating in breaking that copyright. Yeah, it's an interesting case. It's weird. And there are some weird questions around the idea of torrenting and pirating and all of that as well. Most of those have been kind of settled over the years, but this one is pretty interesting. It's interesting, if only because it's such a big company with lots of legal team that's making the argument. And unfortunately, that makes a huge difference. Right. And that's one of the downsides of the US, not just the US legal system around the world. Right. This is just one of the problems. I'm not sure there's any solution to it, but to be able to make a novel claim like this and argue it in court, you've got to have the money to be able to pay court fees and lawyer fees. And so you've got to be fairly big to be able to make a claim like this and test it in court. If I torrented something and they came after me, it may be true that, hey, I didn't seed it, but I would have no way of fighting that.
5-10 years from now, we'll give you all an update on this.
Yeah, that's the other downside. Things move extremely slowly. But yeah, it's so fascinating to me. And like I said, not directly Linux related, although this could have repercussions for torrenting, even torrenting Linux ISOs.
Facebook runs on Linux. It's all Linux.
Too.
They're contributors to Linux. They're big on are they big on the Butterfs, I think, file system, I think?
Possibly. I know they do a lot for PHP as well.
One of the Butterfs, and they're big on the IO ring design.
That makes sense. Yep.
Yeah, they were big on Butterfs, I think, before anybody was really barely using it, if I remember right.
Yep. All right. So let's hit our last story, actually, and that is Jeff, and he has the story about changes at Mozilla. Oh boy.
Yeah. Mozilla Corporation's president, Mark Surman, announced plans today not today, I guess Wednesday, but to tackle what are major headwinds facing the company's ability to grow, make money, and remain relevant. To quote Mark, he said, Mozilla's impact and survival depends on us simultaneously strengthening Firefox, finding new sources of revenue, and manifesting our mission in fresh ways. So how are they going to do this? Well, they have a new council composed of executives from each of the different Mozilla organizations. So they have Mozilla Corporation, someone from Mozilla Corporation, Mozilla AI, the not-for-profit Mozilla Foundation, and MZLA Technologies / Thunderbird, and Mozilla Ventures, which it's Mozilla Ventures, which is its capital venture arm. Mm-hmm. Now, of major note is the absence of Michelle Baker, co-founder of Firefox. She is no longer a chair or member of either the Mozilla Foundation or the Mozilla Corporation boards. Now, she's been a polarizing figure in the past due to Mozilla having layoffs while she was receiving multi-million-dollar salary payments. We've covered in previous shows how the drama and contention surrounding her paycheck and direction for the company have really, there was a lot of people that disagreed with her direction and the amount of her paycheck based on the size of the company. And so I'll leave it at that, but she is now completely out of Mozilla. The new council says it will continue to invest in privacy respecting advertising, fund, develop, and push open source AI features to remain product relevant, and pursue novel new fundraising initiatives. Now, they didn't go into what that is. That's just the direction they're heading. The article does mention that while Firefox is named a few times, it's not the central focus, even though it brings in the most revenue because of the deal with Google. For those who don't know, Google pays Mozilla a lot of money to have Google as the default search engine on Firefox.
And you can distill that statement even more and say that Google pays Mozilla for Chromium to not be the only browser in existence.
I was just going to say that. Yes,
Okay.
it's. I was going to read between the lines and say we don't want to be stuck with a monopoly, so we're paying Firefox to be around.
Yes.
The article continues with some editorial comments from the author. Now, this is just from the author, and just summarize them. He understands that Mozilla's in a difficult position because, based on legal cases, the funding Mozilla gets from Google could be in jeopardy. He goes on to say, finding an equitable, sustainable future to maintain its flagship browser and advocate for an open web, it needs to be Mozilla's priority. And, he talks about the importance of Mozilla in the internet browser ecosystem just to keep Chrome from being the dominant juggernaut. And, there has to be an alternative out there. Take a look at the article in the show notes, which also has links to LWN's comment section. In addition to where this article is from, the link in the show notes is OMG Ubuntu UK, and they have their comment section in there too, where there's a lot of people with input, and I'm sure my co-hosts have some opinions on this, and I would love to hear them.
I do. I'm going to let Rob go first. I want to look something up. So go, Rob.
I don't know. I don't know. I'm speechless, bro.
Well, a lot of the comments in both comment sections basically came down to stop focusing on things besides Mozilla. Stop making goofy little side projects that nobody wants, nobody cares about. Really focus on making the browser really, really good.
I mean, I feel like we have said it all before, and I guess I don't know if I want to be too redundant with it, but yeah, obviously she was getting paid too much. They get a lot of money from Google, blah, blah, blah. And obviously Firefox browser is their thing. That's what they should focus on. And I think they should spin out like their email client. And
so, okay, the email client is already spun out.
Oh,
yes. You, Rob, and everybody else listening, need to go listen to Floss Weekly episode 820. Just about a week ago, I interviewed Ryan Sipes, who is the project manager, kind of the lead guy of Thunderbird. And I got the scoop from him on a lot of things. So, Thunderbird is under the Mozilla organization, the open source, the nonprofit. It is not a part of the Mozilla Corporation, which is an interesting note to make. I was looking to try to figure out this press release that they put out. What does it represent? Is it the corporation or is it the organization? Because those are two different things. I am going to say that I think diversifying is the exact opposite of what they need to do. Mozilla has two core competencies. So if we're talking about the Mozilla open source like nonprofit organization, right? There are two things that they do that people care about. With a possible third, I'm gonna list a third that I think people should care about. But there are two that people really care about, and that is Thunderbird and Firefox. Those are the two things that are on Mozilla that anybody cares about.
Those are the only things.
Those are the only things that Mozilla does that people care about. None of the rest of it. There is a third thing that Mozilla does that people should care about, and that is trying to engage with politicians and teach them about how technology actually works. Right? This is a thing that Mozilla actually does. And so I get to talk to some of these people. Simon Phipps is also in the same space, for example. So when you have something like the UK trying to say, well, we need encryption backdoors. One of the things that the Mozilla organization does is they try to come along and say, let us tell you why this is a really bad idea. And so Mozilla does this sort of in the realm of web technologies. Because in this realm, one of the things that you get fun things like standards being adopted that everybody is required to support that have patents tied up in them. And so then this is one of the ways that big companies that own patents make money, by the way. So like let's say a video codec. Well, let's make this video codec standard for the web. Let's get politicians to encode this video, to specify that this video codec is a standard for the web. And oh, by the way, MPEG LA owns 72 patents on this, and everybody that runs this video codec has to give us $1,000 license. Lots of money gets made this way. And so Mozilla, one of the things Mozilla does is they come along and they will say, this is a really bad idea. Let's not use patent encumbered technologies inside of these standards. Like that is the third thing that Mozilla does that is worthwhile. Not as many people know about it, but it is something that they do. Other than those three things, I think Mozilla should take the Elon Musk approach and drop everything else, cut their workforce, and concentrate on those three things. Stop doing things that will make them show up on places like the Lunduke Journal. Stop doing things that people roll their eyes at. Stop putting out observations like that. We've got to diversify. Just there are three things that I want Mozilla to do. I want you to make Thunderbird great. I want you to make Firefox great. And I want you to keep some common sense. Try to teach politicians common sense about the way that open source and the web works. Those are the three things. Anything not related to those needs to go. And if they were to do that, I think they could probably turn a profit. And then take inspiration from what Thunderbird has done. And Thunderbird in turn took inspiration from what KDE did. And that is every 6 months, pop up a little notice that says, we pretty much exist because people give us money. If you enjoy what we're doing, please give us a little bit of money. Do it in Firefox, exactly what they've done in Thunderbird. Thunderbird and KDE have had huge success with this. Do it in Firefox. Do not do ads. I can tell you nothing will get people to uninstall Firefox quicker than having ads built into it. Because the people that get totally irritated like that are the people that are running Firefox. It is a betrayal of the existing user base to do something like ads in the product. So don't do that. Don't do any of that dumb stuff. Just let people know this is the amount of money we need. If you can't support us, then we're eventually going to go away. People will come out of the woodworks to support you, but stop doing all the dumb extra stuff.
Okay, I'm going to give a slightly different take.
Feel free.
So focus on Firefox. That's your baby.
Mm-hmm.
All the things you said, great about Firefox. Good.
Mm-hmm.
Thunderbird, spin that off. Go give that to LibreOffice or something. I know
Thunderbird is already its own company. It is not part of the corporate structure of Mozilla. It only exists underneath the nonprofit. It is in that nonprofit umbrella.
Yeah, go give that to LibreOffice. They can donate to them, but I think that should be bundled in with LibreOffice or something. And then for the educational or lobbyist branch or whatever you want to call it, spin that off too. I mean, it should exist. Mozilla can donate to it and support it, but let it be its own thing. Don't let it drag other things down on their main focus.
Yeah, that's fair. I think we could probably go one step forward and say that all of this needs to be very clearly delineated, right? So have the Mozilla overarching nonprofit that helps manage all these things, and then split it up into these three different groups.
Yeah, that works too. Is whatever it is, don't let the other two detract from from Firefox. And if people care more about the educational piece than they care about Firefox, well, then that's where their donations and support will go, and Firefox will go away. And not that I foresee that happening, but let's let the support speak for itself. You support this, let it go to that. You support this, let it go to that. And
that's fair.
And I suppose the foundation can be the one who can support and manage it, just like the Linux Foundation, I guess, does, or all the foundations they have, like all kind. They're an umbrella over top of so many things, and maybe there's just some confusion the fact that it's the Mozilla Foundation and Mozilla Firefox and Mozilla Thunderbird. I don't know, maybe that grays it for a lot of us, so we don't really realize that there's maybe a little more separation than we think. But I don't know.
Yeah, there's several sub corporations under there. But I mean, I could totally see, really what needs to happen. I mean, I know it's different, but Thunderbird, they need to make it probably a little more corporate friendly. Really just juice it up, and
they're working on it. I will also say they are working on that. That is one of the goals that we talked about on the show, is being able to do like Office 365 integration inside of Thunderbird, and that is coming. In fact, it's partially working, and they are putting the finishing touches on that.
Nice. Yeah. And as far as like AI, only where it helps browsing be better, work on AI, and not as like I'm going to make a virtual assistant. I'm going to help it maybe hit multiple search engines, something like that, or whatever. Just it does surprise me, because when you read the comments, it's overwhelmingly of make Firefox better, make it the top browser, focus on that. I mean, it's like 95% of the comments say that. And there's a lot of comments saying, you know what, I would donate to it. They said I would, a lot of people said, kind of the Wikipedia style of, hey, if you just give us a couple bucks, it'd really help.
Yeah. And
people donate. And even if they're worried about Google saying, because the court case is saying, oh, we cannot force, because basically it's coming from kind of an antitrust spin of saying, okay, Google can't pay everybody to make Google the default search engine because that's like antitrust or whatever. Well, you know what? Google's still going to hit that donate button and go, well, here's a few $100 million just to stick around, because it's not illegal to have a monopoly. It is not illegal. But when you are classified as a monopoly, you have an extra large set of rules you then have to play under. I mean, it brings a lot of overhead, and they just as soon say, we don't want that. Hey, Firefox, keep going. And as long as they can keep it a viable alternative, they go, we're not a monopoly. Okay, we have 99% of the market, but we're not a monopoly. Yep. Here's an option you can go to right here that's viable.
Yeah. So I haven't given Thunderbird an honest chance in a long time. I'm looking at it now. It actually looks a lot better than it used to be. I mean, it's maybe very petty, but what just drove me nuts is just kind of the look and feel of it. It just always looks so antiquated, like just like something made in the early 2000s. And looking at it, looks pretty good, but I can't remember now. Is there theming? Because I still don't like the icons in it.
I think there is some. I think they're working on more. I'm trying to remember. It's been a little bit since I had that conversation.
And they went through a big revision here about 6 months ago. They really advanced the code quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because it stagnated for quite a while. And then they had a big release, and now they're back into it. And so
they came to the point where there was only budget for very small handful of engineers to work on it. And they came to this point where it's like, well, what do we do? Do we spin out and go into LibreOffice? Do we do something else? And they came to the conclusion. They said, we're going to ask people if they want if they want Thunderbird to stick around. And people overwhelmingly said yes. There's a large group of people that love Thunderbird and want it to continue. It's okay. We're going to ask them every 6 months. We're going to do a pop-up and ask people to give. And they've been able to hire multiple full-time engineers off of that. They've done exceptionally well with it.
And I'm glad to hear there's a corporate take on it too, because
this is a problem that they're aware of. Yes.
I have to use Outlook at work. It's all Windows based, and Outlook, the new Outlook, I have tried it. It is like Fisher Price Outlook. It's great for somebody that gets.
I know what you're talking about. Yes, it is. It is.
Yeah, and I forced it back to Classic, and I'm still on Classic, and I'm gonna die on that hill. But it's for anything that's serious email, the new version is horrible. It is not. When you're getting 800 to 1,000 emails a week, and you got to go through them and, really power through stuff. That new one is just, it's made for grandma sending an email. Or
I was with a customer. Yeah, I was with a customer. It's been a couple of months ago. And he got updated to the new Outlook, and there was something that we needed to do. We needed to do something with one of his like actual Outlook files, like split. I think we needed to create a new offline Outlook file and download email into that, so that when his email account went away, he wouldn't lose it all. And you couldn't do it. You could not do it in the new Outlook. You could not make a separate file. That's what it was.
Now, which new Outlook is that? Is that the paid one or the one that's built into Windows 10? Because they have everything's called Outlook now.
That's part of the problem. I'm not sure which it was, but I went searching on the internet. It's like, how do you do this in new Outlook? And found several threads. You just can't. It's not supported. Not at all.
I think the one that's comes built in with Windows 10 has the bigger issue where Jeff is talking about the paid one where they just made it a colorful
yeah. So one more thing that I will really quickly touch on. A couple of people in the chat mentioned, well, webmail is so good now. Gmail's webmail is so good. Why would you want Thunderbird? And I would tell you, one of the reasons that you actually want Thunderbird is to have an offline local copy of your emails.
I don't like Gmail webmail either.
I mean, I don't care if you like Gmail. I like Gmail webmail. I use it a lot.
I don't like the interface. I don't like their web interface either.
And that's totally fine. But like every once in a while, you will lose connection to the internet. I know it's hard to believe, but it does happen.
I like Thunderbird's interface better than Gmail webmail.
I probably do a little bit too.
The online versions too. I see there's like Curious's Outlook 365 online got much better a while back. It's still terrible. It does not. When you're doing now, I'm talking serious emailing here. I'm talking, huge number of attachments. You're forwarding. You're creating. I mean, and I'm using a ton of keyboard shortcuts just because you just got to get through it. You can't sit around and kind of let me.
Sounds like you need a secretary or some AI.
No, I use the AI as well. And I'll tell you what,
administrative assistant. Sorry,
but I know we're getting a little off the rails here, but online Office like Excel and Word, it's missing too much functionality. It's built for grandma sending something once in a while. When you're
online Outlook is okay, but Excel is missing a lot of functionality.
Yeah,
Word is.
If I wanted that, I would just go use Google Docs, right?
Yeah, but again, I'm at work. Yeah, I'm a power user. I'm probably using a lot of functions that most people aren't.
Windows power user here.
Yeah. As somebody said in the comments, Roger H. Jeff is an email 1%er, I might get my patch and, but for home, it would be okay. I'm not doing anything, but at work, no, it does not hold a candle to the applications.
So to bring this back to Linux, one thing I'm looking at Thunderbird here, and they seem to be following the new Outlook design with that tab on the side that I kind of dislike. I really hated when my Outlook at work would put that tab running down the left side, and that's what Thunderbird did too.
I'm sure you can change it.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I went through and because even when they changed the one at Outlook, I went through and I want compact mode. I want to get rid of the big fluffy headers with the pictures. Because I got to get more information on that screen.
Yeah.
And
I need to read 20 emails at a time.
Yeah. You'd be surprised at what you need
to find that delete button a little quicker.
Shit.
I do. I use the cleanup functions. I do because I literally get like say 1,000 emails a week. You have to be able to sort through them, and there's ways you do it to just speed through it.
You just select, delete, hope there's nothing in there important. If there was, they'll email again.
Yep.
I'm going to give Thunderbird a shot. It does look a lot better. I really want to change those icons because they look colorful, kind of like something I would have thrown on a website about 15 years ago. But if I could fix that, I think I'm okay with it.
I think it has some theming. So give it a test run and let us know what you think.
I've been using Gmail for a while, and I still I'm kind of lukewarm on it. But now is a good time. Maybe as well, I will try Thunderbird and give it a shot again because I used to use it all the time. Quite a while ago.
Yeah, it is once again getting to be better and much more usable. All right, let's get into some command line tips. We've pontificated enough about the news. We've told the Mozilla folks what they need to do. Let's tell the users what they need to do. Rob, what is Q?
I got something really cool for you guys. So, Q, spelled Kew, it's a terminal audio player. So basically, it's Winamp for your terminal. So if back in the day, I would have loved this. 25 years ago, I'd set up a computer and the thing would be hooked up to an amp and just some speakers, basically DJ for friends, and I'd just have a playlist going, and I'd have to use this graphical user interface when it's just not necessary, because Q will do that for you. All right. For those watching, I'm going to give you a little snippet of Q, and this is in like all of them, apt install KEW. There are a couple of things to set up. You have to point it to the directory where your music is, which isn't hard. If you run Q, it says can't find directory. Run this to point to your music directory. Not hard. And yeah, so if you run Q, I grabbed a few MP3s, slapped them in a folder here to demonstrate. So I don't want you to see all my inappropriate music. So, I guess I just grabbed whatever. So here, for those watching, if you can see that, yeah, you guys can see that. You can see the songs in the directory. There's some F keys. F2 will show the playlist, which I have nothing yet. F3 is going to show the library, which was on. F4 is going to show the tracks, which is nothing there yet. F5 will show all the keys. So it gives you all the shortcut keys, plus, minus for volume, arrow keys for tracks, scrolling through the playlist, up and down arrow keys. I'd toggle color delivered from album or from profile. I'm not going to go through all these, but there's a bunch of keys that you can use to navigate through, fast forward, backwards. And then, so if I go to the F3 to the library, I'm going to click on a couple of these to click on a couple of these to add to the playlist here. So I'm putting stars by them. Now I'm going to go, I'll show you the playlist there. It shows it right there. If I hit F4, I don't have the audio piping in, but
I thought you said you weren't going to show any of the inappropriate ones.
Yeah, I guess it does say it has the explicit lyrics, doesn't it? But you can't hear it because I do not have the audio piped over. But you get a nice little, you get a text-based album cover, which I assume that's what the album looks like. I don't know.
It looks like an adult game from like 1985.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a bunch of colors for those listening. And then you have the what is that called? The sound at the bottom there. There's a name for that with all the bars going.
Equalizer. There we go.
Yeah, it's more like a visualizer, honestly.
Yeah, because I can't adjust it or anything. But anyway, you can be listening and you can just have a simple little audio player and, whatever, DJ for your friends or go professional, whatever. You might want something fancier than this, but a nice, cute little music player.
Yeah.
A spectrum analyzer in the bottom.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
That's neat. Now, the unfortunate thing is on my systems, it's not available to install via the package manager. I don't know why Pop! OS does not have it, but it does not. And it's not packaged on Fedora. So, but
they had a DNF in there.
They have a DNF to get all of the things that you need to be able to build it.
Well.
So, it's fine. I know how to compile software.
On Ubuntu, it installed it all. So,
Yep. So a win for Ubuntu, I guess. No, that's actually pretty neat. I have wanted something like that a few times in the past, so we'll definitely add that to my little toolbox of tools.
yeah, I've found times when I wish I had that, and I had to go with other workarounds.
Yep. So, Jeff, I found a command line tip, and I got really excited about it because it was really cool, and I had never seen anything that quite did this before.
Okay.
And I found it, and I went to paste it into the command line tips, and I discovered that you found the same command line tip, and you beat me to it getting it in there. So we're going to let Jeff talk about kill ports, and then I will talk about something else.
Okay, for my command line tip, I have 2 links in the show notes. The first one is to the Linux TLDR website that goes over the command line tip, which is Killport, Killport. The second link is to the GitHub page for Killport. Now, Killport is basically like how it sounds. It's a command line tool that lets a person kill a process based on the port it's using. So I know there's a lot of people, Ken's probably listening going, I can do that. I don't need a program. But, manually doing it is a little more cumbersome. You'd have to find your open port, look for the responsible process behind the port, find the process PID, and then stop that process. This tool just simplifies things. The article in the show notes goes on. It talks about how to install it, which is available. It's available for Linux, Windows, and Mac OS. It goes over the installation methods for Windows or for Linux, and then it goes into the usage of Killport. And it's pretty easy. I mean, the easiest way to use it is simply sudo space Killport space 80, which would kill whatever process you have on port 80. Mm-hmm. Now, you can do more than one. You can, in the example, they set up something so it's listening on port 80 and 88. Well, if you want to kill both of them, you do sudo space Killport space 80 space 88. So you can just list the ports you want to kill. Now, there is a V flag that you can use, which will allow you to see the verbose mode. So it gives you a lot more information that it's just showing that, yep, it definitely killed what you said you wanted to kill. And there's also a -S flag if you want to kill the process using the sig up, sig kill, or sig term signal. So if you want to use those, you can. The command is really pretty basic, and you can take a look at the article linked in the show notes for more information, but that's pretty much everything. So it just simplifies something that you manually could do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is neat. That is and it's a Rust program, so it looks like generally you'll install it with brew. You can install it with brew. That is one of the options, but cargo is what I was trying to spit out there.
Guess we got a Mac user here.
You can.
And there's also
on Linux. Yeah,
you can, but most people running brew are probably on Mac.
Maybe. What was that, Jeff?
Oh, and there's also a script method. So if you don't have homebrew or cargo, they do have a script you can get with curl.
Okay, cool. All right. I'm gonna plug. Actually, it's not exactly a terminal. I mean, you run it from the terminal, but then you use your web browser to interact with it. It is Stable Diffusion Web UI, and it's actually a Python program. But the thing that's interesting about it to me, it uses Stable Diffusion to do AI generation of images. And it works on AMD cards with PyTorch and the ROCm backend. And what's really interesting to me is it's a pretty good test. It actually works with the Fedora ROCm packaged packages. Sure. So I've got a link off to the actual GitHub page and then also to a YouTube video that I found extremely helpful, talking about how to actually get this thing installed on a Fedora machine. And so, there all of the normal AI image generation things apply here. So, you can go get your models off a Hugging Face and all of that. But also, don't be dumb with AI. Especially because when you're running these locally, they don't have all of the safety things built into them that they will running them off of a website. And so don't don't be dumb with the things that you make your AI generate for you and that you then send to people. Just don't be dumb. Don't break any laws. Don't be dumb. I do not claim any responsibility for people doing dumb things with this, but it is cool that it works and that it can work on local machines and that it can work with AMD video cards. The world is not all CUDA anymore, and that is the main thing I find neat about this.
Yeah, don't be dumb and download torrent books and train it with your AI.
Don't train your AI on torrented books. Yes, that is the lesson that Facebook engineers learned, or maybe didn't learn. I don't know.
Yeah.
Just the cost of doing business, right? Okay. Well, I think we've gotten through everything. I will let each of the guys plug whatever they want to plug. We'll let Rob start. I have a feeling that he's going to try to plug Coffee Linux.
Yeah. I'm just got the same old plug that I do every time because I'm boring. I'm not as fun as Jeff with the cool poems. Here's my poem. No, never mind. I can't think of anything. Come and connect with me online. If you go to robertpcampbell.com, you'll find my webpage. All kinds of cool things about me. Well, maybe not that much. There's some things there. But the key thing I'm trying to point out here is near the top in the gray little box, you'll find a little button links to my LinkedIn, my Twitter, my Blue Sky, which I am trying to be more I'm maybe the most active here these days. Mastodon, which I'm second active, I think. And Coffee Linux. No, this is where you can donate coffees to little old me and let me know that I'm still appreciated. Or yesterday was my birthday, so if you want to send me a birthday coffee, you can send that too.
How many coffees do we have to buy you to get you to roll your own Linux, to make Coffee Linux a reality?
20,000.
All I know is one of those coffees was earmarked for me, so Rob owes me.
I'm headed out your way in the summer, so.
Oh, nice. Nice. I'm gonna convert it to beer though, or coffee beer.
There you go. All right, Jeff. Anything you want to plug?
Not really. I'm not very active on social media, but I do have Poetry Corner. So this one's for you, Rob. Hickory dickory dock. Don't watch Netflix on the clock. We can see what you're doing. Bandwidth you're ruining. And soon that website will block. Have a great week, everybody.
Yep. Fun. All righty. Thank you guys for being here. I sure appreciate it. You can find my stuff on most of it on Hackaday these days, including including Floss Weekly. You can find the Untitled Linux Show here at TWiT. You can find Floss Weekly over at Hackaday, and we have had a string of really cool interviews. Unfortunately, I've been doing them by myself because my guys have just not been responding. I've got Rob lined up to come for next week, so we're making progress there. But we've had a couple of really interesting ones. This past week, we interviewed Gregory Kurtzer and one of the community managers at Rocky Linux to kind of be the bookend to our Alma Linux episode from several months back. And then we did also the week before that talk to to Ryan Sipes from Thunderbird, and that was a really cool conversation. And we did indeed tell him, please don't add AI Clippy to Thunderbird. And he was in agreement with that. So I think we're safe there. But that is a lot of fun. You can also find my security column goes live there every Friday morning at Hackaday. We have a lot of fun doing that too. And then, of course, here at TWiT with the Untitled Linux Show, we appreciate those watching, those who got us live and on the download. Don't forget to check out Club TWiT if you haven't yet. It's about the price of a cup of coffee per month, and you can support the network that you know and love. Keep us on the air. We sure appreciate it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week on the Untitled Linux Show.
Hey, buddy, are you a geek? Are you a tech enthusiast? Then I would love to invite you to join a tech community like no other. You can gain exclusive access to our incomparable quality tech content for just $7 a month with Club TWiT. As a member, you'll enjoy all TWiT TV shows ad-free, Plus, access private video feeds for insider shows like iOS Today, Home Theater Geeks, and so much more. Dive into the members-only TWiT Plus bonus feed for behind-the-scenes content, club discussions, and special events. But here's the best perk. Join our incredible Discord community to watch live show productions, chat with hosts, and participate in exclusive members-only activities. It's your backstage pass to the world of TWiT. Whether you're a tech enthusiast or a lifelong learner, Club TWiT elevates your knowledge while entertaining your interests. Get 2 weeks free when you sign up now for $7 a month and unlock unparalleled access at twit.tv/clubtwit. That's twit.tv/clubtwit. And from the bottom of my heart, thank you and welcome to the club.